Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
A whole lot of years ago, summer of 1984 to be exact. No, it was actually the summer of 1985. That summer, I had just finished up my first year of law school. I was working an internship for a business consulting firm in Columbus, Ohio. And I was in a joint degree program, so I wasn't going to be going into my second year of law school. I was actually going to be going into the graduate business program, getting my first year of my MBA. And I don't need to get into details of how that all worked. There's a program, lots of schools have programs where you can get both degrees essentially at the same time. Why you would do that, I don't know. I did it. It's neither here nor there. Anyhow, so I'm at this internship, and I had an office at this business consulting, and I think I've shared in the past that when I say office, what I really mean is kind of a storage closet off of the reception area. It was a pretty large storage closet, and I had a 6-foot table in there with a chair, some shelves, books, no windows. I mean, it wasn't really an office. It wasn't even a cubicle. It was a storage closet. But it was large enough that there could be multiple people in there, and there were a couple of different people that were in there. One point in the summer, it was early in the summer, there was another young woman who was in there, and she had recently graduated from Ohio State with a business degree. And she was looking to work with the consulting firm. I don't think that ever worked out. I think she and others left, and they started their own firm, doing a lot of business planning, those sorts of things, helping small businesses kind of pull themselves together. At any rate, at one point, when we were talking and I shared what I was doing, she says, "Oh, you're going to be going into the graduate business school." I said, "Yeah, I am." She said, "Well, you're going to have computer access." And I said, "Well, I guess. I don't know." And again, this is the summer of 1985. There are computers on campus. When I was at Beloit College, and I graduated there in 1984, there were computers on campus. There was a computer lab, and I think there were 2 in the basement of the library. And if you needed to use the computer, it was simply you had to get there early or sort of wait. But people didn't really use computers. If you had to type a paper, you used a typewriter. You didn't use a word processor at the time. So at any rate, I'm heading into this business program, and she says, "Well, you're going to have access to the computer lab. Would you mind if I used your account to work on my resume?" And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, it's not a big deal. And she wanted the last 4 digits of my social or my social security number. Again, this is 1985, right? So this is not today. I just gladly gave her my social security. And again, it's not 2022. It's not 2015. It's 1985, and social security numbers weren't what they are now. I mean, the importance and the misuse of social security numbers really wasn't a thing. It really wasn't a thing. And I didn't think twice about it because, I'd never really had computer access. All I knew what was kind of happening at Beloit College, and yeah, there were computers, and you just showed up and you used the computer, and it wasn't a big deal. So I don't know what the big deal was. So I provided her all that information. When I say all that information, I didn't even know where the computer lab was. I just gave her the last 4 digits of my social or something like that. It was just real basic information. I didn't think twice about it. So she had left the business I was working at sometime early in the summer, and life went on, and I finished up that internship and then started graduate business school. And sometime in that first semester, I got a call from campus police wanted me to come in. I don't know if it was a call. I think it was a note from someone in the business school saying, "Hey, you need to go talk to somebody at the campus police." I'm I'm pretty was pretty clean cut. I didn't, I don't go to the bars. I don't, I just, why do the campus police need to talk to me? I had no clue. I wasn't concerned at all because, I mean, I get up, I work out, I go to school, I study. I might go on campus to get a burger or something like that, go to a football game. I mean, there was nothing in my mind that would alert me to an issue. So I sat down and, just it was kind of a casual conversation, and they just said, well, particular stuff. You're in the business school, so on and so forth. Yes, yes, yes. And they asked me then if I knew this particular woman. I said, well, I do. At that point, they read me my rights. That was scary. They just said, we just need to do this. We don't know that you're in trouble, but we need to do this at this point in time. And of course, then I kind of sat up from this casual conversation, and I'm like, okay, yeah. And so what they did was they brought a printout out. It wasn't a huge printout. Well, I guess it was. It was like 4.5 inches thick of just pages of stuff. And they said, did you give this woman access to your computer? And I said, well, I did. She said she needed it to work on her resume. Do you know that she and these other people are using the computers to run a business? They're basically doing business plans and so on and so forth. And I'm like, no, I didn't know. I mean, again, at this point, you call me stupid, perhaps naive in the moment. I just, I really had no context as to what could possibly go wrong with lending somebody access to my computer at that point in time. Judge me if you will. That was just kind of my mindset. I didn't think twice about it. Certainly think twice about it now. Would never do it now. Would never, hand out that information. Guard my computer with lock and key. But at any rate, he wanted to know to what extent I was involved in the business, and I'm like, I'm not involved at all. I didn't even know what was going on. I talked to her. This was probably early July when she left that firm, and at this point, it's probably mid-October. I haven't talked to her in months. I don't, I have no idea. And I do remember, this is a total aside, he leaned forward. He said, totally off the record, are you sleeping with her? And I'm like, no, she's got a boyfriend. I've never even seen her outside of work. And other than the time I saw her in that summer, and again, I figured she was just going to do a resume and that would be the end of it, and at that point, when had been called in to the police, the campus police. They're still the police. Trust me, Ohio State. I mean, it's a city unto itself. It's got its own damn zip code. It was a scary moment. But I had already. I guess where I was headed with that is that I had been to the computer lab, and okay, yeah. I see, they're trying to control this thing. And apparently this woman had come to the business school and said, hey, I would like to use the computers to, work on my resume and work on other things. I'm a recent graduate, and they basically told her no. Of course, that was never relayed to me that they had told her no. And I guess in hindsight, I should have probably asked, why didn't you have your own account? They didn't, listen, we have students, we have plenty of students, we don't have enough bandwidth for our alumni to come in and use the computers. You're a graduate, get a job, go buy your own computer. I don't know if that was said, but I think that was probably the sentiment behind it. So I was very forthright with the officer, and before it was said and done, he just said, yeah, I don't think there's anything here, and nothing ever became of it. They being the woman in the university and her partners, whoever they were, settled with the university for computer usage, and that was the end of it. But I think about that from time to time because that could have gone entirely differently. I had a very understanding police officer. I had nothing. I mean, I may have had a parking ticket somewhere, not even on Ohio State's campus. Maybe a speeding ticket in Iowa somewhere along. I think somewhere in '82 I had a speeding ticket in Iowa. But other than that, I had a pretty squeaky clean record, you know, and so it just kind of went away, and I never heard anything of it again. But I often think about, what if it had gone a different way? What if they decided to make an example of me? I'm not a bad person. I certainly haven't become a bad person. I wasn't at that point in time, but it could have gone a different way. And if it had gone a different way, things would have been entirely different. I certainly would have been removed from the business school. I certainly would have been removed from law school. That would have been very, very embarrassing. Facing up to my parents, just, trying to explain what I did, and how stupid it was. And I probably never would have gotten into a law school at that point. Just the embarrassment of going all back to all my undergrad professors and telling them what had happened, and it's just, life would have been very different, and that's something that would have followed me around for years and years. All the while, it's just me, a guy with a speeding ticket in Iowa as the only thing that had really ever been on his record. And I don't know how that would have changed things. But I think about that because I've run into a couple people as of late who have things on their records. And I've noticed that people have become very judgmental of them. Oh my gosh, this person, has got a record. And there was one person trying to get into AmSpirit, and somebody looked into them, and they had a record. And sure enough, it's plain as day, they had a record. And there was a few things on the record, and they're like, we don't want this person in our chapter. And I'm like, okay, I get it. You've got to be able to trust people. But I get it. But then, when I went and talked to the person, I'm like, listen, they're not going to invite you into the chapter because of this that's on your record. And the person kind of not broke down sobbing, but was just, you could just see they were totally defeated. They're just like, listen, that was 20 years ago. I made a mistake 20 years ago. I paid for that mistake. And I think it was a night in prison, or not in prison, in jail. And then there was a restraining order, and I made the mistake of, this involving an ex-wife, making the mistake, and I think kids were involved, making the mistake of going and knocking on the door because he wanted to see his daughter. I don't know if alcohol was involved, or it was a mistake, and got picked up for violating a protection order. But he's just like, I made a mistake. These are years ago. When do I get to stop paying for my mistake? And I had to reflect upon my own situation. It really kind of brought some compassion to me about this guy, because my life could have been entirely different with that on my record. In addition to the speeding ticket in Iowa, and now I've got a couple speeding tickets in Ohio too. One for sure. But anyhow, the point I'm driving at with all of this is, we need to, in our relationships, in our current relationships, in our prospective relationships, we need to have a degree of compassion. And we certainly need to have a degree of contrition for the things we've done. I was stupid. I was dumb. I've done other dumb things. I've said dumb things. I've said crude things. I've said things that have been offensive. I've never really meant to hurt anybody, but I've done dumb things. And we're kind of in an era here where, when you do something dumb, saying sorry is almost worse. It almost makes it worse for you. It's like, okay, now you're admitting. Now we're really going to get you. And it's wrong. We're destroying great people for really no reason. Or we run into people, and then we find out that they have these things in their past, and it changes our perception of how we deal with them. And I get it. It's, we're all trying to protect something. We're all trying to protect a career and relationships that we have, but at the same time trying to build relationships, and sometimes with these people. And we just need to approach these things with a degree of understanding. I was sharing with somebody who is involved in this, not the person, but involved in this. I said, I know somebody he knows that, and I'm leaving names out of this, that has a felony conviction. They would be shocked to find out the person had a felony conviction. And I said, it was brought to my attention because they were involved in AmSpirit Business Connections, and I looked into it. I've never told the person that I know, and I don't know that I ever will tell the person that I know. There's no value in it, but I looked into it, and more or less what the situation was this particular individual fell on their sword, took the fall for a lot of other people. And I won't get into it, but it doesn't matter. But when you start to really gain some understanding of why people had situations, like if, for example, if I had something on my record, would anybody give me the opportunity to explain what had happened? Now, granted, whatever I explain is going to be probably skewed in my favor. Although I've pretty much laid it out there. I was dumb. I gave somebody access to my computer before I knew the value of what a computer was all about. And I guess that's making excuses. But and then you have this person who, when you look, this person who can't get into AmSpirit, when you look at the situation, you look at the black and white. Okay, they had a criminal conviction. It was a misdemeanor. It was a first-degree misdemeanor. Domestic violence was the and we hear domestic violence, and we conjure up visions of just people, a guy bashing in a woman's face, and that might not be the situation. I'm not excusing domestic violence. I'm not. I'm just saying that there are just categories within the law, and things fit within those categories, and they might not be what they are perceived to be. When you look into it, the guy spent a day in jail, which means that there probably wasn't a whole lot to it. And it was just a situation where, well, I'm not even going to try and speculate, but there was less to it than what it appeared on paper. So my point in all of this, as it relating this back to our networks and our relationships, is one, we need to look at our own lives and look at the skeletons we have in our closets. Because I think we all have speeding tickets, we all have things that could have gone the wrong way, done things that have could have just gone the wrong way, as I pointed out in my story. And to the extent we have them, we need to be willing to say we're sorry. But on the other end, as people learning about these other things, we need to have a degree of understanding and forgiveness for other people and the mistakes they've made in life, because we've all made mistakes. We've all made mistakes, and we've all had to come back from those mistakes, whatever it might be. Very, very few people out there have those squeaky clean lives. It might have been being caught with beer while you were in high school, or whatever it was. It's a minor cheating scandal, just stupid sorts of things that maybe you didn't get caught, but it could have gone a whole different way. And that situation shouldn't define people, certainly not forever. Again, we have people rolling out of prisons after 20, 30 years of serving very violent crimes, and we want to move heaven and earth to try and assimilate them into the workforce. And maybe it's, we want it to happen, but we want it to be somebody else doing it. We're just supportive of somebody else doing it. But we need to be open to people who have things in their past that are a long time ago that we might not understand, that don't really serve to define who the person is today. People do bad things. It doesn't mean they're bad people. And you can carve out a lot of people in your life if you're willing to just simply pass judgment on a mistake that was made at some point along the way. Just something to think about. There are no right or wrong answers. It's just I guess, treat people how you would like to be treated. And if my situation had gone a different way, I would hope that people would have the compassion to just hear the story, and understand that, it had gone the wrong way and I was ousted from business school and law school. That doesn't mean I'm a bad person, but I definitely made a mistake. So anyhow, enough. Have a great day. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.